Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me for our book club on a book called The Sabbath by Abraham Joshua Heschel. And this is part 3 of that book club. So if you have the copy of the book, you can read along with me, and then we'll have a brief discussion afterwards. We're going to look at the chapter titled A Palace in Time. He who wants to enter the holiness of the day must first lay down the profanity of clattering commerce, of being yoked to toil. He must go away from the screech of dissonant days, from the nervousness and fury of acquisitiveness, and the betrayal in embezzling his own life. He must say farewell to manual work and learn to understand that the day has already been created and will survive without the help of man. 6 days a week we wrestle with the world, wringing profit from the earth. On the Sabbath, we especially care for the seed of eternity planted in the soul. The world has our hands, but our soul belongs to someone else. 6 days a week we seek to dominate the world. On the 7th day, we try to dominate the self. When the Romans met the Jews and noticed their strict adherence to the law of abstaining from labor on the Sabbath, their only reaction was contempt. The Sabbath is a sign of Jewish indolence, was the opinion held by the Seneca and others. In defense of the Sabbath, Philo, the spokesman of Greek-speaking Jews of Alexandria, says, "Oh, this day we are commanded to abstain from all work, not because the law inculcates slackness. Its object is rather to give man relaxation from the continuous and unending toil, and by refreshing their bodies with a regularly calculated system of remissions, to send them out renewed to their old activities. For a breathing spell enables not merely ordinary people, but athletes also, to collect their strength with a stronger force behind them, to undertake promptly and patiently each of the tasks set before him." Here the Sabbath is represented not in the spirit of the Bible, but in the spirit of Aristotle. It says, "We need relaxation because we cannot work continuously. Relaxation, then, is not an end. It is for the sake of activity, for the sake of gaining strength for new efforts." To the biblical mind, however, labor is the means toward an end, and the Sabbath as a day of rest, as a day of abstaining from toil, is not for the purpose of recovering one's lost strength and becoming fit for the forthcoming labor. The Sabbath is a day for the sake of life. Man is not a beast of burden, and the Sabbath is not for the purpose of enhancing the efficiency of his work. Last in creation, first in intention, the Sabbath is the end of the creation of heaven and earth. The Sabbath is not for the sake of the weekdays. The weekdays are for the sake of the Sabbath. It's not an interlude, but a climax of living. 3 acts of God denoted the 7th day. He rested, he blessed, and he hallowed the 7th day. To the prohibition of labor is, therefore, adding the blessing of delight and the accent of sanctity. Not only the hands of man celebrate the day, but the tongue and the soul keep the Sabbath. One does not talk on it in the same manner in which it talks on the weekdays. Even thinking of business or labor should be avoided. Labor is a craft, but perfect rest is an art. It is the result of an accord of body, mind, and imagination. To attain a degree of excellence in art, one must accept its discipline. One must abjure slothfulness. The 7th day is a palace in time which we build. It is made of soul, of joy, of reticence. And in its atmosphere, a discipline is a reminder of adjacency to eternity. Indeed, the splendor of the day is expressed in terms of extensions, just as the mystery of God is more adequately conveyed in the categories of negative theology, which claims that we can never say what he is, we can only say what he is not. We often feel how poor the edifice would be were it built exclusively of our rituals and deeds, which are so awkward and often so obtrusive. How else express glory in the presence of eternity, if not by the silence of abstaining from noisy acts? These restrictions utter songs to those who know how to stay at a palace with a queen. There is a word that is seldom said, a word for an emotion almost too deep to be expressed, the love of the Sabbath. The word is rarely found in our literature, yet for more than 2,000 years the emotion filled our songs and moods. It was as if a whole people were in love with the seventh day. Much of his spirit can only be understood as an example of love carried to the extreme. As in the chivalristic poetry of the Middle Ages, the underlying principle was that love should always be absolute, and that the lover's every thought and act should on all occasions correspond with the most extreme feelings or sentiments or fancies possible for a lover. Love, with the troubadours and their ladies, was a source of joy. Its commands made life's supreme law. Love was knighthood service. It was loyalty and devotion. It was the most noblest human giving. It was also the spring of excellence, the inspiration of high deeds. Chivalric culture created a romantic conception of adoration and love that to this day dominates in its combination of myth and passion, the literature and the mind of Western man. The Jewish contribution to the idea of love is the conception of love of the Sabbath, the love of a day, in the spirit in the form of time. What is so luminous about a day? What is so precious to captivate the hearts? It is because the seventh day is a mine where spirit's precious metal can be found, with which to constrict the palace in time, a dimension in which the human is at home with the divine, a dimension in which man aspires to approach the likeness of the divine. For where shall the likeness of God be found? There is no quality that space has in common with the essence of God. There is not enough freedom on the top of the mountains. There is not enough glory in the silence of the sea. Yet the likeness of God can be found in time, which is eternity in disguise. The art of keeping the seventh day is the art of painting on the canvas of time the mysterious grandeur of the climax of creation. As he sanctified the seventh day, so shall we. The love of the Sabbath is the love of man for what he and God have in common. Our keeping the Sabbath day is a paraphrase of his sanctification of the seventh day. What would be a world without Sabbath? It would be a world that knew only itself or God, distorted as a thing, or the abyss separating him from the world. A world without the vision of a window in eternity that opens in time. Such a profound conversation we can have around Sabbath. It is not simply about taking a day off. It really is about understanding that the only time we can really say, I am and he is coming together in a tangible way that is expressed outwardly is when we choose to Sabbath. And so much of our culture talks about how we need to grind and we need to go and give our all, and all of those things are great. And I think we can get caught up with, okay, I'll concede to the idea of a Sabbath because I know that that's regenerating me to go back to our work. But when you think about it in the terms of how Heschel is speaking of it, it has less to do with that and more to do with actually the Sabbath is the ultimate, over the product that comes from our work. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. How well do you do Sabbath? I can say for myself, I remember about 4 months ago now. I mean, I knew I hadn't been Sabbathing very well. Never in my life. And I would say things like, I love work, and I do. I love work. I love producing things. I love creating things. But I knew that